The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus told his disciples a parable. Can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? No disciple is superior to the teacher, but when fully trained, every disciple will be like his teacher. Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in your own? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me remove that splinter from your eye," when you do not even notice the wooden beam in your own eye? You hypocrite! Remove the wooden beam from your eye first. Then you will see clearly to remove the splinter in your brother's eye. A good tree does not bear rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree bear good fruit. For every tree is known by its own fruit. For people do not pick figs from thorn bushes, nor do they gather grapes from brambles. A good person out of the store of goodness in his heart produces good, but an evil person out of the store of evil produces evil. For from the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. The Gospel of the Lord.
When I was about 10, I remember I was running around the neighborhood outside with my friends one day, and coming around the corner of their house, they had this sort of metal bracket sticking out of the side of their house. It must have held like an old outdoor thermometer or something. And as I ran around the corner, I slammed right into this metal bracket. I actually sliced my eyelid right open, and it hurt. I kind of got thrown back, but I was having fun, so I just kind of kept running around with my friends, and so one of my friends stopped me and said, "Are you all right? Like, you have this big wound, this big gash in your face, and there's blood pouring down everywhere." And of course, it's kind of hard to see what's going on in your own eye, and so and the blood everywhere, you don't see anything. So I went inside and looked in the mirror, and sure enough, it looked pretty bad. So I ran home, and as soon as my mother saw me, she said, "What happened to you? We got to bring you to the hospital." Turned out I needed 8 stitches to sew up the gash in my eyelid. And as a 10-year-old boy, I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And I remember telling all my friends at school the next day, "Hey, did you see what happened to my eye?" And they all said, "Well, yeah, we can't help but notice you look like the Frankenstein monster all sewn up there." Well, it's kind of hard to see what's going on in your own eye, but we see what's going on in other people's eyes all the time. And that's sort of the image that Jesus uses to call out that universal human tendency we have, which is to inflate the wrongdoings, the sins of others, while remaining blind to our own sins and shortcomings all the time. We all do this. You do it. I do it. We all do it. And because Jesus is about to call out all of us, he kind of lightens the blow a little bit, actually by telling a couple jokes about blind people. Now, we might not get their jokes. Jokes don't translate all that well into another language and culture, so we might not get the punchline, but Jesus is actually being a little bit of a stand-up comedian here. And if you think about it, you kind of get the sense of probably why this was funny, because you think about one blind person trying to lead another blind person, and they both fall into a pit, or the image of the person trying to get the little wooden splinter out of someone's eye, while all the time they have this wooden beam sticking out of their own eye, a telephone pole sticking out of their own eye. Or maybe you think it's not that funny. I mean, after all, not every attempt at humor is funny, and maybe we think, geez, I don't know if it's that nice to make fun of people with a disability, and we do have to be careful. There's sort of a fine line in life between humor that builds us up and makes us laugh and kind of helps us to see something, and then humor that tears down, that's cynical, that's sarcastic. The root of sarcasm actually comes from a phrase that means to tear at the flesh, like dogs would tear at the flesh of an animal. And sometimes that's what we do when our humor becomes too sarcastic. We end up tearing people down or tearing at people, even the people that we love, even in ways that we don't intend. I know I have to be careful of that. I'm from New England, and we love sarcastic humor. We love tearing at each other a little bit, all because we love each other, of course. But you have to be careful you don't take it too far. What we're looking for, actually, is real humor. And the root of humor actually comes from humus, which is earth. We say that someone who has a good sense of humor is down to earth. It's the same root, actually, as human. We human beings are close to the earth. We are made from the earth. We will remember that this coming Wednesday when we put ashes on our forehead, and we'll hear again those words of Genesis. Remember that you are dust. Remember you are from the earth, and to dust you shall return. We are not gods. We are not eternal. We don't have everything together. We don't know all things. We're these little creatures that crawl out from the earth and will return there again soon enough. And remembering that helps us to realize that we need to be humble. And humility comes from the same root, earth. Someone who's humble is down to earth. They remember they're from the earth. And that's what we need, humility. If nothing else, these last 2 years have taught us all humility. When a microscopic virus can bring humanity down to its knees, it helps us to realize just how fragile, just how temporary we really are. And looking back, I mean, I don't know if it's too soon yet to laugh at the pandemic. Probably it is too soon because we don't have enough distance yet. But I hope eventually we can look back at this time and say, well, you know, we did some crazy things during that time as well. And we all did our best during that time. That's why we kind of need to forgive ourselves and forgive one another and move on, because nobody got everything right in these last 2 years. In fact, if you think you did get everything right and it's everyone else that's wrong, you might want to look at that big telephone pole sticking out of your eye. We all do our best, and this is true of anything. It's one of the curses of the internet is that we all read something on the internet and suddenly think we're experts about something, when we have to realize that real experts who spend their whole life studying a subject, even they know frighteningly little about human existence, about the world around us. And in the end, we're all sort of just blind people trying to feel our way into the darkness, hoping we don't fall into a pit. We're all doing our best. And so what Jesus is doing by telling these jokes about blind people is actually helping us to see we're all blind. We all don't see everything very clearly in life. And hopefully he's not being sarcastic. Hopefully it's all in good humor. Because there's nothing like a good joke to help us to see reality in a new way and to laugh at our humanity a little bit. You know, it's a little bit like the man who went to the doctor, and the doctor said to, now, Larry, you kind of check out pretty good here physically. Everything seems to be good, but how are you doing spiritually and emotionally? And Larry said, oh, Doc, I'm doing great. I feel wonderful. I'm at peace with myself. I'm at peace with God. I mean, God is so good to me. He knows I have poor eyesight, and so when I get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, poof, the light comes on all by itself. And then I go back and poof, the light goes off. And the doctor said, that's amazing. I've never heard anything like that. Well, later on in the afternoon, the doctor called Larry's wife and said, Bonnie, I mean, everything checked out fine with Larry. He's doing well, but I have to say, I'm in awe of his relationship with God. Is it really true that he goes to the bathroom at night and poof, the light goes on? And then he's done and poof, the light goes off. Oh, no, said Bonnie, he's peeing in the refrigerator again. If we can't laugh at our own humanity, then we are going to be in trouble spiritually and emotionally, because our humanity is tough. Life is tough. Suffering is overwhelming sometimes in our life. I saw a headline this weekend that said, pandemic, recession, now war. What more can you throw at us, world? And I think a lot of us feel that way right now. And there's one response, I guess, is to think that we are gods, that we are superheroes, that we know everything, that we have no limitations, that we don't need suffering in our life. Or we begin to, when we do suffer, lash out at others. We begin to look for someone else to blame for all the problems in my life and all the problems in the world. It's the Russians, it's the Chinese, it's the people of the other political party, it's people who wear masks, it's people who don't wear masks, it's, I don't know, it's the people over there, people of another religion, neighbors down the street. Not to say some of those things might not be problems, but they're not the problem. We need Lent really bad this year, because Lent reminds us of what the problem is. And the other thing we might hear when we come up on Wednesday to receive our ashes are the words of Jesus. Repent, turn away from sin, and be faithful to the gospel. And there, Jesus tells us what the problem is. It's sin. And he tells us what the solution is. It's the gospel. It's the good news of a God who loved us enough to send his Son into this world to help us to turn away from sin, to help us to have the courage to take a good look in the mirror and reveal all those wounds that we have to God so that he can heal us. Just like we would show all our sickness to a doctor so he can heal us, or we would show all our sins in the confessional to the priest so we can be forgiven. We do that with God. We say, God, it's not like God doesn't see all our wounds. Sometimes our wounds are out there for everybody to see. But if we can be honest about our own humanity and in all humility come before the Lord and just as we are and say, Lord, I need you. I need your healing. I need your salvation. I can't save myself. I can't save the world. All I can do is start right in my own heart and ask you to help me get that big telephone pole out of my eye so I can see more clearly my own sins, so I can help other people. I can become a guide to others. I'm no longer a blind person leading a blind person into a pit. I can now see something about your love so I can maybe help someone else avoid that pit. This is the only solution to the problems of the world. Back in the 1930s, the Times of London sent out a question to all the great intellectuals of Britain. And the world had just gone through World War I, the Spanish flu, and the Great Depression. And so the question was, what is wrong with the world today? And I'm sure there were many interesting answers, but the great Catholic author G.K. Chesterton, who was well known for his humor and his humility and his humanity, simply telegraphed back a two-word response. What is wrong with the world today? I am.